Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I thought I would share my last roll of film back from my holiday to Japan. These are my analog photographs from my last Sardina Lomography camera. I have posted some other videos of some pictures of Kyoto and Tokyo, so please do check those out as well. When we arrived in Osaka, we first headed to the aquarium because boyfriend was very interested in seeing the aquarium and particularly the whale shark. I didn't really bother taking any pictures inside the aquarium with my analog camera because I knew it would be just too dark for it and nothing would really come out. So I don't have any pictures of the inside, but I do have some pictures of the outside, and the little area around there had a giant Ferris wheel, it had Legoland, it had a shopping centre, and it was quite nice and fun, and it was really sunny that day, so it was quite nice just to wander around, take a few pictures before we actually went inside to see the fish and sharks and stuff. I also took some pictures of the streets in Osaka. It felt quite different to Tokyo and Kyoto. The streets were quite narrow, but there was still a lot of traffic and bikes and then people walking in the street. There aren't a lot of pavements, and then you have a lot of the street lights and the cables and things all running across the top of the street, which is a little bit like how it is in America, I think. Oh, that's what it reminded me of anyway. And it just had a kind of a different vibe and a different look to the other places that we'd been in Japan. Again, I try to use some of my multiple exposure or double exposures with my camera because it's a really fun function of the camera, and I think it's really easy to use and is quite fun and works quite well. So this time I've taken one of those street scenes, and also then I've done a double exposure with some flowers, just to kind of get that contrast. I think it's also a portrait and a landscape orientated picture put together, so that is kind of usually quite head spinning when you're trying to figure out in your brain what's actually going on. I took a few pictures from the Ibisu Bridge. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, I may not be, near Dontonbori, which is the famous street in Osaka where there is a famous street sign, and there's lots of bars and there's lots of animatronic signs on the bars. So that, you know, they sell food, and then there's one with like a giant moving crab, which presumably sells crab, and so on. But they all seem to have it, so it's really fun to see all the signs and really fun to see all the shops. It's just really, really busy, and mostly with people taking selfies and pictures, and it's really hard to criticize when you're also there taking selfies and pictures. But it does make it really busy and awful. So I can't say that it was my favorite place to go in Japan, but we've been there. It was one of the places that's recommended. I've ticked it off my list. It's done. I don't ever have to go back. We also went to some more picturesque and more attractive and more traditional places like the Osaka Castle, although actually, like most places in Japan, it seems like the original one burnt down and had to be rebuilt, and the inside of the castle is now a museum, so all the insides were kind of ripped out and it doesn't look like the castle on the inside anymore anyway. The museum's quite nice, it's quite, you know, it was worth a visit, but it's really the external of the building which is worth seeing because it's really quite attractive building. When we were in Osaka, we decided that we wanted to make a trip to the top of Mount Koya, which is a really significant and religious mountain where Japanese Buddhism is said to have originated when someone kind of brought it back from China. So there are lots of temples and lots of shrines. So we took a train and a bus out to Koya-san. You should only have to take a train and then a 5-minute cable car, but the cable car broke down the day that we were going, so instead we had to take an hour-and-a-half bus up the mountain, which made me feel a little bit travel sick. But the mountain itself did not disappoint. It was a lot more kind of built up when we were up there, and there was more of like a town than I was expecting, which was actually a pleasant surprise because it meant there were places to get drinks and food and little shops and stuff. And we ended up having a really nice lunch in a vegetarian cafe. So that was fun. There are lots of temples. There are lots of brightly coloured temples with that kind of orange red colour that is really associated with the temples in Japan. And there's also a graveyard that we walked through which has these incredible trees. They're absolutely massive. Some of them have branched into 2 or 3 different trees, but they're all kind of connected at the base. But they're absolutely huge, and they've been there for hundreds of years, some even maybe 1,000 years. They're absolutely huge. And so it's really cool when you're walking through, and really interesting atmosphere to walk through. It was very, very hot, and it was very, very clear and blue, and there's quite a nice bit of lens flare on some of these images, which is quite fun. Everyone loves a bit of lens flare. If you've liked the images, please give me a like, please leave me a comment, and please subscribe to see more videos.